Hi, everybody. Having a little bit of problems, but we're on. I think we're on. Let me check everything. And I know it's very late, but um, but we made it. We made it. So we're on. And thank you, everyone, for having patience. And I apologize for coming on so late. This is day 1077, and it looks like I'm on. And you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And, it's 1,077 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And we've had a lot of irregular collusion. And I want to continue that tonight from what I was talking about yesterday. There's so much information and trying to organize it so that everyone understands. And I wanted to show a picture of General McConville because tonight I want to talk about General McConville. We have found out a lot of information in that regard, and definitely conflicts of interest in that regard, and definitely so many. Uh, you know, I have called him out for crimes against humanity, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The negative impact of his leadership on our country, on our military, um, even um, even on the world. Uh, History will tell the story if it's truthful of the absolute negative impact that he has had in the world, and especially in the military and in our country. Okay, so there is lots of conflicts of interest there, and if you look at him, he looks nice enough. If you talk to him, he's been to charm school, but you know them by their fruit, right? We know them by the fruit. That's what God tells us. That we need to judge. We need to judge according to God's word, and then we will know them by their fruit. And because if we judge people by God's word, then we absolutely uh, will judge justly, okay, and with mercy and with long suffering. And that's what we have been 1,077 days with all the information that we have gathered and that we are gathering. And now because we're in the big leagues now with judicial help, judicial officer help, because um, we have now an alliance within Fort Bliss. We have intel, right? We have intel from within Fort Bliss, and we've had intel in the past also from Team Fine Richard Halliday that has given us leads and putting pieces and pieces together to give us a firm foundation when I say that General McConville needs to be um, investigated, absolutely investigated. And from all the information, the proof, he did not give Richard the time of day as far as providing proof for his allegations that he made to the agencies that then spread the false dissemination that he created in Richard's case with his allegations that were unsubstantiated against Richard, and that he has not even taken the time to be transparent, to apologize, to go with his public affairs officer to go to the media to uh, undo the damage that he did with his unsubstantiated allegations that he made to very important um, agencies, all within our government structure. He was too busy committing crimes against humanity, and this got in his way politically, and so he made false allegations and accusations. So if I get disconnected or whatever, it's because this is the big leagues. This is very, very serious crimes that he has done, and he's just not nobody. You know, it's like Nadal Baim. Nadal Baim is just not nobody, right? And they want to uh, kick the can down. And by doing that, we're human beings. We're not machines. And we forget. We forget or we don't forget, but we have things that happen in our lives that take priority, and so then we don't have the means. We are not able to get justice for the massive crimes that someone like General McConville has committed. And he absolutely has committed crimes against humanity. But our society being so controlled that it is, and the economy being so controlled that it is a little bit different than in the 1950s or the late 1940s after World War II, when people had their own businesses and they could demand um, justice much more easily without fear of the retaliation that we have today. We we're so dependent on the government and government contracts and government jobs and um, the government communities that provide us with our economy. It's so bloated, it's so big now that it has taken away our freedoms just because we're dependent on them for our livelihood. And you see what happened during COVID, why I was so against it from the very, very beginning. It was so obvious to me that it was an attack on small businesses, the destruction of small businesses, because it's so much easier for the government or for the movers and the shakers, the ones in power, to control these huge um, uh, box stores, right, with these huge CEOs all across the country in order to create monopolies, in order to control our freedoms, because then not only are we dependent on the government for our livelihood, we're dependent on these big, big companies for our livelihood to work, and for our children to work there and to make a living. And what that does is it stifles our freedoms, it stifles justice. When our freedoms are stifled, then justice is stifled, because um, we are afraid to be whistleblowers, you see. We're afraid to be whistleblowers because we might lose our jobs. Our children might lose their jobs. Our friends or whatever, um, might be tainted by us being a whistleblower in a much more dire way, in a much more severe way than if we had our own businesses, you see, our own small businesses. It's small business is so important. And you saw this attack on small businesses uh, with the Antifa, with the Black Lives Matter burnings of the inner cities that were, if you overlaid them, and this is not from me, this is from Catherine. Her name's just left me, but economist, amazing uh, uh, insight from Catherine. I'm trying to think of her last name. Austin Fitz, Catherine Austin Fitz. Um, and she was like, look, I did an overlay of where they were burning the inner cities and the opportunity zones to create all these small businesses. And that's exactly perfectly overlaid. They were burning the opportunity zones for small businesses. And then we came into the COVID era of, smaller businesses had to abide by restrictions and had to close down much more severely than the large businesses, and it didn't make any sense. And so many of them had to close down in restaurants. And I know my son-in-law had to leave the country because, um, when you're doing sushi and it's COVID, it's hard to find work. So it's it was really an attack. And what in the middle of all of this, Richard went missing. And Richard was a whistleblower. And McConville doesn't like whistleblowers for illegal activity within the military. Okay, especially when he has conflicts of interest. And he has conflicts of interest with Fort Bliss, okay? With in Richard's case. He's very connected with Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss is a sister Siamese sister city with Juarez, Mexico. Okay, it's a very, very important um, installation, military installation, and um, and here Richard was being the whistleblower. So this explains um, why McConville would make these unsupported allegations, and now we know false allegations about Richard at the beginning of all of this, and contributed to, and this is not a maybe. He absolutely did this. He contributed to the smear campaign on a missing soldier. Okay, he disseminated misinformation. General McConville um, disseminated misinformation that were absolutely uh, um, led to the the further um, sabotage of of the search for Richard, and it complicated the whole investigation of Richard. And also, it impacted the media coverage or the lack thereof in Richard Halliday's case, and is still doing that. So, these false claims that he made to mislead the public. So, not only was he misleading the public with the COVID, okay, um, absolutely, and participated in the crimes against humanity, okay, absolutely did that. Absolutely did that. Not only did he do that, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, but um, he made unsubstantiated claims against Richard to create false narratives against Richard, to hinder the search for Richard, to mislead the public, to um, to hinder the search for truth, right? And he damaged uh, the reputation of the military because of that. It's very clear. Without proper evidence, inside the military, they knew what he was doing. They knew. This is, they're not dumb. The CID's not dumb, and the IG's not dumb, and the soldiers are not dumb. And, so he damaged the military. And that means that he is a security threat. He's a security threat. And because he is so compromised. That's why he can be like a little puppy on Warmouth's lap. Um, he has no strength at all. He's just nothing. He's made impotent because of the damage that he has done. And he does not get the respect then from so many in the military because they know what he did, not just in Richard's case, but in so many cases. But tonight I want to talk about what he did with Richard's case, because we know that Major General um, Coward, Clem Coward, called off. Um, sorry, my computer's acting really weird. Uh, Called off the. Let me start something up again because I need it. Okay. Okay. Sorry, my computer is really acting so funny, y'all. Okay. Let's see. Okay, got it. Mm, okay. Interesting. Interesting. It's not there. Um, okay. So I'm just going to do all this by memory. Um, and it's not going to be as good as what I had prepared because I think it's very, very important when we come to General McConville. Let's see if I can find it a different way because I think this is so important. Fortunately, I just record um, because we've been made to be our own secretary, recorder, everything, right? Um, Hold on. And let's see if this works. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is these false allegations that General McConville disseminated, and the role that he played in the sabotage of Fine Richard Halliday, which is absolutely huge. Um, and the impact. So yeah, here I found it. Yay! Okay. One, um, the false allegations that Richard was AWOL, that he did not um, correct. Okay. And you can say, well, what do you mean? Um, he corrected them um, on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, 2020, by designating Richard the very first CONUS S1 missing soldier in U.S. Army history under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart. So we shorten that up a little bit and just say the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, right? Vanessa Guillen, first absent soldier. That happened on November 25th, 2020. Um, and it was a happy day for me. But now that I go back and I look at what has happened, and I look at Clem Coward's participation in this, Major General Clem Coward's participation in this, and know that he had called off. Absolutely. There's no other way that a thinking human being could do an analysis on what happened and come out with a different result. Okay? When you look at what happened, when you go through media, when you talk to soldiers, when you look at every screenshot, when you look at Director Ford's confession, information, I call it a confession, his information, that, and you put it all together. There is no other explanation except for that Major General Clem Coward called off the search for Richard Halliday very early on. Okay? And that's why protocols were not followed, and that's why we weren't notified. Okay? And McConville came in and did not correct that. Okay? Did not correct that. And we're talking about, I want to say in October of 2020. I should get the exact date of the phone call that we had, and I think I do have it up there. When we first talked to General McConville. Absolutely, he should have put out there that Richard was being investigated as a missing soldier. There's no way, when you know that you have a major general that, and they had all this information, that Richard was a whistleblower and that a major general had called off the investigation into him being missing and protocols were not followed. And the evidence that we had then, we didn't even know that he was that Richard was a whistleblower at that time, but General McConville did. Major General Clem Coward did. Okay, and I am not even inserting the findings of Richard's remains on the 29th of July and the 5th of August, and the autopsy report that came out on August 10th. I'm not even inserting those leads that we have gotten. I'm saying just on the basis that Richard was a double whistleblower and General McConville absolutely knew it, and that Major General Clem Coward was up to no good because he didn't follow protocols, that General McConville absolutely should have clicked heels together to do a proper investigation into the whereabouts of Richard right away. Not wait until the 25th of November because of what Team Find Richard Halliday was doing, that drove them to redesignate Richard, even though Richard was being, by our leads, redesignated all the time. All the time. And why do I know that he knew? Is because of the Fugitive Apprehension Unit being called to our home to illegally search it without a warrant, and the yellow Interpol. They were doing weird things, okay, to cover up for the dereliction of duty and the murder of Richard. Okay, it's just that simple. Because if Richard was not murdered and they did not know it at that time, they would never have put forth the steps that they did, follow the steps that they did. For example, disseminate false information about Richard, keep him AWOL, keep him a deserter until the 25th of November of 2020. That is just because we were screaming out and they had no proof. As soon as there was no, well, the CCTV footage of Richard supposedly escorts and whatever, he should have absolutely demanded that there was a public announcement continuously giving Richard back his character in that, or redesignating him immediately, and making it a big to-do in order to tell everyone, send a message to everybody that it is important to find this soldier now because they had made a mistake. But that didn't happen. What did happen was a staged task force find Richard Halliday with all of the agencies, 15 plus agencies, including ATF, which is alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives, which is a big deal. They don't come to just be nice. They come because guns were involved. Okay? And of course the CID was there, and the Customs Border Protectors were there, and Homeland Security were there, and DEA was there, and the Mexican official, representing the Mexican government and the Mexican military were there, and the FBI were there, and on, right? On and on. 15 plus agencies, $1 trillion represented there in taxpayer-funded agencies. And $1 trillion is a lot of money, y'all. Trillion is a big number, a very big number. Try stacking it. Try doing anything with $1 trillion. It's a huge number. Okay. So that was there, and it was staged because there was no operational order. There was no task force leader appointed, and the military, the Army, were all out of uniform. They were in their civilian clothing like it was a picnic, and that made it unofficial. Okay? But, for people like me, we don't know that. We have to be told that. So we got out to the vehicle. My husband was not a happy camper. He knew it. He had to explain it to me. He couldn't believe it. And of course, more people that know the military absolutely explained it to me. And what a louse, what evil people. They really are. Because they knew what they were doing. The SJA knew what they were doing there. Okay. And they were given orders to cover this up, to protect those in higher positions from losing their jobs. And they absolutely should lose their jobs. Did you want all of Hitler's generals to keep their jobs after World War II? Were we supposed to just protect them? Were the Germans supposed to just protect them in what they did? And yes, I'm comparing it because they've committed crimes against humanity, and we are like a Trojan horse. And we've had 7 suicides in 7 months. That's what I was told there at Fort Bliss alone. And who knows how many rapes, who knows how many other crimes. What about all the human trafficking? What about the child sex trafficking? What about all everything that has not changed at all? What does it take for us to change? We have to get um, these rogues, these rogue generals out of their positions. Okay, they're up to no good. And this is just getting started with what General McConville did. And I have here this whole Mexican border thing. General McConville is responsible for that narrative getting out there, that Richard crossed the Mexican border with a weapon. And that was the beginning of the smear campaign against Richard to the public. And there is no evidence, okay? No evidence. Matter of fact, there's evidence on the contrary, like the nurse at the hospital, who in her report, he was at the border briefly but never crossed over. Okay? But you see, to disseminate, he had to collude. To disseminate this false narrative about Richard, he had to illegally collude to keep that narrative out there. And never to, until this day, they have never repaired, never retracted this false narrative. And y'all, the vast public might not know what he did, but inside the military, they know. Okay? They know. Blaming my son for his disappearance and misleading the agencies like the CID, like the FBI, like the IG, like the U.S. Border Patrol, like the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, like, other agencies. He was implying that Richard was involved with illicit activities that included this border crossing. And we know that CID Soto, Special Agent Soto, was disseminating this information for him. Because let me tell you, he would never do it without the blessing of General McConville. And so to all the law enforcement agencies, a very false narrative was being spread to sabotage the search for Richard, to misrepresent Richard, to redirect the investigation, to cover up, not to look where they needed to look, but to redirect it so that they would find nothing. And we're not even getting into the military operations used against us or the asymmetric warfare tactics, which include, in my opinion, the phone harassment and bullying that we received for months every day, that we traced those phone numbers. And they absolutely came. Most of all of them came from government places. Okay. So it is, you know, really on General McConville's shoulder because you see, he wears a uniform. There's something about wearing that uniform and wearing our our guide on our shoulder. You know, he wears the flag. He has such huge responsibility for his soldiers. And he committed crimes against humanity against them and betrayed them. And he did not have Richard VI. I can speak for Richard. He he used Richard badly, very badly. Um, so I can't stress enough the lack of any credible evidence for supporting McConville's allegations, his false dissemination, his true dissemination of false allegations against Richard, and this false narrative that he put out there. Um, think about that. Think about that because who is General McConville, right? Who is he truly? Who is he working for? You know, um, so I put together some impacts, um, the harm that he has done on the military. And I just, and I'm saying this because he went not too long ago, I think maybe a week ago, he went to Fort Bliss and a meeting was called. Remember that Friday? An emergency meeting? And 100% it was about Find Richard Halliday. 100% it was about Team Find Richard Halliday. And 100% it was about the 14-year-old girl that was, her identity is very, very shocking. And she was living in the barracks and being prostituted out. So, and this is not a one case. Someone's sent me a TikTok, and it was on TikTok, that another, I think a 12-year-old girl had been kidnapped and living on Camp Pendleton. Does anyone know about that to confirm that? I have very good confirmation of this 14-year-old girl living on Fort Bliss in the barracks being prostituted out, having hell of a nights. Hell nights for this 14-year-old. Okay. Hell nights. Um, and I was shown a TikTok of a 12-year-old, I believe, 12-year-old at Camp Pendleton in California, living in the barracks being prostituted out. This is not, and I saw that after I had heard that this is not an isolated incident. This is happening, and I saw, I have screenshots that many are staying in the barracks overnight, sleeping overnight in the barracks. Um, this is a Trojan horse, and the Trojan horse's door was opened by General McConville and General Mealy. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff with the all of those Secretary of Army and whatever, um, Secretary of Defense, and they need to be held accountable because this kind of mess doesn't just happen. Okay. And then if you're a whistleblower, there's a, the severity of the whistleblowing makes a big difference too. Because if you're growing criminal syndicates after destroying small businesses or, just taking so much control over and making taxes go up and inflation and everything, and you have desperate people needing to make ends meet, or you just have a lack of training in esprit de corps when you're training uh, our soldiers in the survival of the fittest instead of you need to have your battle buddy six, right? You need to look after each other. You need to look after each other. You need to look after each other. I mean, this is not a military that doesn't get support um, in every way. We give them everything. So the criminal activity that is taking place with the fentanyl and other illegal drugs and the legal side of the crimes against humanity, and then the girls being brought in, the children, the child trafficking, the all the porn. Okay, and you can say, "Oh, this has been going on for a long time, years and years." It doesn't make it right, y'all. It doesn't make it right because one step at a time, and they get you year after year after year, slowly, slowly, slowly. I experienced that in Ireland too. That's a whole nother discussion where they just try to chip away. It's death by 1,000 cuts, right? They just get you, get you, get you, get you, and they get you hooked. They do that hypnosis thing with the swirly eyes and tell you you need this, you need that, you need this kind of car, you need this kind of home, you need this kind of whatever. Um, and then it becomes a survival of the fittest. And then they allow these big criminal syndicates to come in into the military. And then they're selling the equipment, and then our military equipment is left broken. They're leaving equipment in Afghanistan. You think that that Milley just left all that equipment in Afghanistan because he wanted to? That's big money for him. I don't think it was accounted for. I think a lot of it had been sold, and there's no way they would have had a proper inventory bringing that back into the United States from Afghanistan. That's what I'm thinking. Because they left our night vision goggles. Okay, they left our night vision goggles, which was um, thank you to Ted Cruz for highlighting that. And then you look into it. Uh, that is a technology that they didn't have, and now they have it. So, was it all sold already? Was most of it sold? How much of it was sold? We needed an inventory. So, no way would you leave a treasure behind when the taxpayers are willing to ship it on their dime unless you can account for it. And what made me think of that? It's because they've done 5 audits, they might have done more, on the Pentagon, and they failed every time by trillions of dollars. All right, so there is a criminal syndicate going on, y'all. You you can't just fail audits by trillions of dollars, okay? You can't just say, I'm leaving all of that equipment behind and and I'll let 14, I think it's 14, was it 12, 14 Marines get killed. You can't just say, oh, yeah, that Halliday, he was involved in illicit activities. Because let me tell you, a lot of the military would believe it because there's so much illicit activities going on. So the type of crime, um, the severity of the crime is getting higher and higher year by year. It's getting higher and higher. We have a soldier just killing a 2-year old, right? And I know that's happened in the past, but um, we have a more severe and severe. I think we don't even know what's going on because the crimes are being covered up. And so it's multifaceted why all of that is happening. But we can absolutely know for sure that the leaders open the door for it. They open the door for it. And not only that, they disseminate false information. They do the dirty work and staging, um, task force. We're going to do a task force, and then it's all staged. And people don't know that. They go, oh, didn't McConville have a task force find Richard Halliday? And that's what Senator Cruz asked. And that's why he was shut down. He said, didn't you do a task force find Richard Halliday? What were your findings? Where are the reports? Oh, there's not any reports because there was never an op board. There were never, ever any do-outs. You see, he got shut down for asking the question that we want. Where is this warrant? Why hasn't McConville been calling us more often? Especially in regards to into this witness tampering that we've had lately. Isn't he concerned about the witness tampering of a judicial officer in the case of Fine Richard Halliday that's supposed to be in cold case? And nobody wanted to interview the judicial officer that has information that leads to the foul play and murder of Richard Halliday? At least a suspicion of it they can put on the board. And he doesn't care about that. He's covering it up. And then he gets on a plane and goes down to El Paso. And the next thing you know, Major General Eisenhower, somehow, someone in the legal assistance office were given orders to cut us off from any kind of legal assistance. Was that Judge Shook? Judge Robert Lee Shook, colluding with General James McConville to cut us off? Not wanting to answer all the questions that we sent him, including the probable cause, because that would all reveal what truly is going on in Richard's case. The probable cause, what, if any, do the autopsy reports say? What are the dates? What's all this conflict of interest? What are the warrants? What are the probable cause affidavits for the warrants? We absolutely have the right to know that information. What about the CID complaints? What about the findings of the IG? What about the CPS? What about the military police um, disseminating the information? Did that come from General McConville? Well, General McConville has known about Anthony Swafford for a long time. We've been writing, and that hasn't shocked him, so he must have known. He's implicated in that. Because silence is consent. Silence is consent. And so it must be so big that they are willing to risk the impact on any kind of public perception of this. They're willing to lose the morale of their troops. Um, I'm going to be posting up because there's another aspect of this, and that is with Veronica Escobar. Okay. I call her Vanity Fair, Veronica Escobar, because, she's only going to pay attention to things that are mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? And she has said that she's going to run again. She announced her campaign. And there's so many things that I think at this point that I could tell people and they would say, oh yeah, I believe it. I believe it. But Veronica Escobar met with Sean Bernabe several times and absolutely colluded with them, with General McConville, with Lieutenant General Donna Martin. Absolutely, there was collusion with the FBI and all of this, and with political bias and with an agenda. Okay? I can say, oh, it was a potential bias and agenda, but I don't think I need to say that. I want to tell you right now, there was a bias and an agenda. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. When you have the CID first things telling you, oh, did you know that your son's an atheist? He's not a Christian. I'm like, who the heck cares? What does that have to do with this? I mean, what I'm hearing from Soto at that point, what I said to myself when he was feeding me that kind of crap, was, why does he want to do me injury? Because the only purpose of that would be to a mother would try to stab a mom, like it would be information that is like a knife and you'd want to stab the mother, do her injury. That's the only purpose, because nobody else, I mean, of course, Rob, of course, our family, we would care about something like that. But nobody else would care. He's a missing soldier. Does it matter if he's an atheist or a Christian or a Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, right? You find the missing soldier. And so that was a huge red flag to me. Huge red flag. I was advised at one point to try to, oh, I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it. It doesn't do it. It wouldn't help anything. But I'm just saying the advice that those that are sent to help you or whatever, and I think they're informants. I think they're FBI informants, absolutely. And I mean, look at General McConville when Dollar General Man at the end of October absolutely should have come out Oh my gosh. But that's the day, October 26th, is the day that the FBI got involved in Richard's case. That's the day. The FBI man day. And I've been told, do not call him Dollar General man because he's the FBI man. He doesn't work for Dollar General. He works for the FBI. And I'm like, yep, yep, that's right. If an admonishment is productive and true and right, I stand corrected. He's the FBI man. Nadal Baim is the FBI man. Also, the father in law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM, saying that the FBI, since he works for the FBI, were looking for Richard and Juarez and found him, not looking for him alive, but looking for his remains. They were always looking for his remains. What does that tell you? They weren't looking for pictures of Richard or looking for text messages or phone calls or anything like that. They were looking for his remains. And they found it. They found him. Shh. And we called the State Department, the special agent there, who absolutely also was talking to me and my husband as if they were looking for Richard's remains. And not as if. He was absolutely talking about them looking for Richard's remains, not a live, healthy Richard. So the false narrative that was coming down from General McConville was criminal. Absolutely criminal. And he needs to be held accountable. And it's not because I have some kind of vendetta against him. He has hurt our country so bad. So bad. And is just, I can't even imagine what he has been offered or what he has been done in order to go along with this. Okay? To be involved in something like this against his own country, against his own soldiers, against other countries' people, because when he what he has done is not just to our country's institutions, it's to every person in this country and beyond the border. Okay? When I say crimes against humanity, he absolutely did it, and he needs to be held accountable. And if someone is willing to commit crimes against humanity, that it should not shock us that he did criminal acts in the case of Fine Richard Halliday too. Okay? He did it. And he just met with Major General Eisenhower. And he orders Major General Eisenhower around. What did he disseminate to Major General Eisenhower last week? What damage, what crime did he continue to do? Because there's not a doubt in my mind that there was a colluding and a crime committed. Because we haven't gotten a phone call yet, right? Because if he was there to do the right thing in 24 hours, they would have already contacted us and told us what happened to Richard, because they know, y'all. They know. So absolutely, when over a week goes by that General McConville spoke with Major General Eisenhower, the commanding general of Fort Bliss, and absolutely crimes were committed again, because they have denied us due process. Our prime witness is still banned from Fort Bliss. A judicial officer, prime witness, still banned from Fort Bliss. And here we had our legal assistance severed, and we don't have answers from the DA and the AG and the IG, and what happened to CID Quantico, what happened to the sheriffs there in El Paso and in Sarasota, Florida, and many more. El Paso Police Department. I mean, we have just covered those bases. Where is the phone call from Veronica? Where are the handcuffs on Veronica? Where are the handcuffs on Leilani Hart? Where are the handcuffs on Dallas Hart? Where are the handcuffs on Jay Pollan? Where are the handcuffs on Captain Park? Where are the handcuffs on McConville? Where is the handcuffs on Mealy? Where is the handcuffs on these absolute criminals? And I could go on and on. James Hart. And I know they need due process, but so do we. Where's the handcuffs on Clem Coward? Because it wasn't just Richard that they committed crimes against. They committed crimes against children. They committed crimes against our country. You don't serve in the United States military you don't serve and engage in incestual relationship. You don't sexually assault 7-year-old children. You don't cover that up. You don't wait 2 years before you report it. You don't brag that you have control of the CID and access files like Leilani Hart did. And others. We have reported others. The conflict of interest is huge. That's just a small group. These were groupies. CID JAG groupies. CID JAG groupies. I'm wondering about that paralegal that was shaking so bad. I'm starting to connect dots with that. Because these are CID JAG groupies. And the dissemination of false information that sabotaged the search for Richard was to the law enforcement agencies, were to the MPs. We know that. We knew that way back when I first started talking about Anthony Swafford. Where is the congressional investigation in this? the congressional inquiry in this? Where are the judges? Where is Paxton? Where is Governor Abbott? We wrote him too. We wrote Paxton too. Where are they in all of this? They're supposed to be servants. They're supposed to be serving us. That's why we give them everything. We give them the big fancy houses. We give them the security. We give them big staffs. We give them whatever it takes to run their households. We give them everything to travel. We give them everything. I think we need our taxpayers' money back. I think we need reparations, right? All this talk about reparations. Okay, and and I posted up a another uh beautiful structure, and I said, "Do you see what I see?" And I made this point. I was trying to make a point that about I pencil again, about these people that are apt, the apt people, the ones that absolutely have skill and that can create amazing things, and be part of being, building things. And we're in a culture of crime and destruction and warring. And that kind of severity of crime leads to more crime. If Richard was whistleblowing on someone, taking some pencils or whatever, no one would want to, retaliate against him and cut him asunder into pieces, and, call in help to um, dismember his body and put it in different places and tamper with evidence and things like this, right? Nobody would want to do, that. It just, that level of crime would not beget another larger level of crime. And that's what I'm saying. The crime is getting so big. When you get away with raping 7-year-olds in your master bedroom, and that is reported to the CID and to the FBI and notarized by Notary Republic to give it extra weight, and nothing is done about it, it's going to beget even bigger crimes and crime syndicates. And so that's my concern in all of that. And it's, I just don't have a vendetta against all these people. Matter of fact, it makes me all cry. It makes me all cry because of the lost potentiality, the lost aspiration, the lost skills, because every one of these criminals have some amazing potentialities and skills and aspirations that could have been there, that could have been their life, instead of the desperation of criminal activity that they would kill a soldier, that they would plot and kill, and not only just murder him, but dismember him and try to cover it up, and then do even bigger lies to cover it up even more, and going up to some of the highest levels. It's so sad. It really is. And justice is what we need, and accountability is what we need. For the sake of every person. We need to get rid of this crime direction that we're in, and focus on things that are good and noble and true and wonderful, and build things again, and do things just for beauty and glory. Because people go, oh, why are you doing it that way? Just for the beauty of it, for the beauty and the glory. People go by and say, wow. Yeah, we've lost that, you know. Um, and we're just turning into, a crime country. And Richard being adopted, um, that's really why I uh, thought about this so much, is because, and why I love Theodora so much. And that is because you can have a past and you can't undo the past, but you can move forward and have a beautiful life. And you might stumble along the way, because sometimes the past comes and haunts us a little bit. But you might stumble along the way, but you can regroup and you can make a beautiful life. And, I just pounded that into my children. Don't chase happiness, okay? Don't chase happiness. Don't do it, because it's going to get you in trouble. Just always do the right thing. Be very, very good. Very, very good. Try to be very, very good. A very good person. Try to adhere to the principles of God, of the Bible, of this country. Try to be very good. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's a huge task. And that's why I would say don't, in Little Dorrit, that's a book by Charles Dickens. They turn it into a movie, and in that movie, there's a scene where the maid marries this old man, and he's not that great of a guy, and the son of who she works for, feels so bad for her and say, well, you married him. Are you happy? And she's like, at my age, what does happiness have to do with it? And if you've ever watched that movie, or read the book, it's called Little Dorrit. Um, it's a masterpiece, absolutely a masterpiece. Then you'll understand what I'm saying. And Richard went over and above what I ever expected. What he did at Fort Bliss was absolutely remarkable for a young man. For a young man, absolutely remarkable. And it was so moving to me that that's why I made him into this saint, which he would laugh if he was here. He'd just laugh, because when he was younger, and I would say, "Well, Richard, what do you want to be?" "I want to be a monk." I want to be a monk. Because he knew that it would just make us like, what? Come on, and and he just, he just wanted a good laugh. That was his humor. Um, but he wasn't far from. I mean, he became a saint, a real true saint. What he did, absolutely remarkable, and he paid the ultimate price. And I can say that with total confidence. Total confidence, because I have proof. Total proof. And talking about McConville, um, betraying his obligations that he has to his soldiers and the U.S. Army, as Ted Cruz said it, he is obligated to care for his soldiers, and to see that failure and the failure to actively search for Richard, or do the protocols that would help the search for Richard, to get justice for Richard. They have they have done everything to sabotage the search for Richard. So there's not a doubt in my mind that they need to be held accountable and punished, and not with a vendetta, for justice sake, for every soldier's sake, for our country's sake, for our world's sake. Absolutely. And all those that participated in the murder and the cover up of Richard, they all need to be held accountable. Not because I'm angry that I have a vendetta, because for the children's sake, literally for the children's sake, for young mother's sake, because look at the grooming of this 14-year-old. It's not an isolated event. They're grooming our young girls, or even grooming our young boys, to go into these sex cults and taking away their aspirations, their potentiality, everything that they could be doing and learning, and just becoming sex slaves, and putting them in these if you are part of my sex slave, then we'll let you be high ranking, or move up in the ranks, or whatever. I mean, this is nothing new. If you participate in the Vanity Fair, then we'll give you position. So, and part of that is like these movies, these grooming to making money in this porn industry and everything. It's huge. And we have that movie Sound of Freedom, which I haven't seen yet. I've I've gone back and forth. Should I go see it? Shouldn't I not see it? Because it's all about child sex trafficking. It's about a little girl that gets sex trafficked. She's, having to provide sexual services many times a day, many times, and it's about her rescue and this kind of stuff. And I don't know if I can really handle seeing that right now. I don't know. So if Team Find Richard Halliday, if any of you have seen it and you can provide a review, let me know. Let me know. Maybe I should just go to a theater and interview the people that are coming in and out, and ask them if they know about Richard Halliday. Um, Maybe that's what I should do. I don't know if I could sit through it. I said that about Vanessa Guillen, and I did watch I Am Vanessa, and it was very, very helpful. So, um, yeah, so I'd appreciate any kind of review on that. It could be a psyop, just to normalize this as part of our world, you know. Um, I don't want it part of my world. I don't. I gotta concentrate on my garden, on my flowers, on my grandkids, my grandbabies, and on my children, and all the wonderful things, and the Find Richard Halliday daily. I think that's enough enough of the negative vibes, right? It's enough negative vibes. So so we need accountability and we need justice, um, to give back to all of the people that have been everybody has been affected, to give them back the ability to be great people. Right now we're just stumbling blocks, and you know what God says about the stumbling block? Um, if you're just a stumbling block, then you can put a millstone around your neck and throw yourself in the abyss. God's no buttercup. Jesus is not a buttercup. I believe in the Trinity, see, so, one goes with the other. Oh. Okay, everyone, thank you so much, because it seems people make money off these poor children horror stories. Yeah, they do. That's why I'm thinking it's like a psyop. I don't know if I should go. I don't know if I want to give them money. Um, it's another way of prostituting them, isn't it? I don't know. It's just people say, oh, it's drawing awareness. Uh, I don't know. I have to really pray about it, and um, yeah, it's so hard to know what to do, because our agencies, our trillion-dollar agencies, are so culpable for all of this. You know, they're so culpable. They could stop it in a heartbeat, because we've given them everything. So they could stop it if they wanted. You know, we don't need a movie for it to be stopped. We need our agencies to do their job. They have 6 ways to Sunday, right? Schumer says they have 6 ways to Sunday, and they do. Look at the energy they've put into destroying people that they don't like. So they could absolutely get rid of all of this child sex trafficking and the illegal drug sales and all that stuff. Especially in the military, especially on a secured, supposed to be secured military installation. So anyway, thank you everybody. Oh, thank you, Danielle. I totally understand that you don't support it. Totally, it's been weighing on me too. Um, because for a while I thought it might be a good thing, and then some people made good points, and um, yeah, so I definitely am changing my mind. So, okay, everyone, thank you so much. God bless you, and please share everything, because I'm being shadow banned. I have a techie guy helping me, and he absolutely sees that that that's happening. So sharing really helps. Okay, everyone, make sure you pass around the letter to Major General Eisenhower to send to him. And you can find that on Find Richard Halliday. And there is, and I haven't mentioned it in a while, but there is a $150,000 reward still for information that leads to finding Richard. Okay, thank you, everyone. God bless you.